Don't forget, you can reach the latest episode of Potomac Watch anytime. Just ask your smart speaker, play the Opinion Potomac Watch podcast.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back. Democrats and pundits are now going through the hours of Pete Hegseth on Fox News, on podcasts, on his books, looking for things to highlight. His latest book is The War on Warriors, Behind the Betrayal of the Men Who Kept Us Free. He is talking somewhat about unwoking the Pentagon, if I can put it that way. Elliot, what do you make of this choice? And do you have a better sense than I do about what Pete Hegseth believes? I mean, my sense is that, like many people in the Republican Party, maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, he was more Reagan-esque, and he's floated a little bit more toward the populist Make America Great Again line lately.
I think that's right. And also that DEI and rooting out diversity, equity, inclusion, that's whole sort of left-wing ideology from the military ranks, that is a major priority of his. Now, the question is, America's facing a lot of threats in the world. Is purging the military a central priority when we need to be building the military at the same time? And when it comes to building the military, you start looking at things like credentials, management. Has he been able to handle a large bureaucracy in the past? And you don't see that sort of experience on his resume, even though no one takes anything away from his combat service in the military. This is a big, big job. When it comes to his views, I think there's less concern, actually. Strong on Iran, supports Israel, tough on China. You know, there is disagreement on Ukraine, but he seems to hew to the Trump view. I mean, a few years ago, he was praising Trump for arming Ukraine in a way that Obama never did. These days, he's more saying that Ukraine could become an Iraq-style quagmire, that kind of talk, looking for ways out. So I agree there has been a shift there, as there have been among many Republicans and supporters of the president. His views may actually line up pretty well with Trump's. I think the questions are, is he too young? Does he have the management experience? Those sorts of things. And we're going to hear a lot about that going forward.
The management piece of it is what gives me pause. And it's similar to Kristi Noem, now announced as Trump's pick for Homeland Security Secretary. These are enormous, enormous bureaucracies. The Pentagon has a budget of about $850 billion a year, workforce of 3 million civilians and military put together, including those that are deployed around the globe. And Bill, I worry a little bit that if you don't have experience in that kind of a role, managing that kind of a beast, the question is whether you end up managing it or whether it ends up managing you. And that's not to say that he won't rise to the occasion. Maybe he will. But the other piece of this that's interesting is Democrats who are going to be in opposition, the party out of power, is always looking to block some of these cabinet picks, maybe one or two, get some victories on the board as the minority party in the Senate sees it. This management piece is probably something we will be hearing more about in Pete Hegseth's confirmation hearings, if and when we get there. Bill, do you worry about that much? And how about for these other Trump cabinet picks? I mean, we should say that it looks like Republicans might end up with 53 Senate seats. And so there is a little bit of cushion there, even if you're losing one or two of these moderate Republicans on some of these confirmation choices.
Yeah, unless they come up with something really damaging in his background. I mean, the problem is if you're a TV personality, you're making statements left and right that could all come back to haunt you, as opposed if you're living quiet life at a think tank or company. Look, I think the problem with bureaucracy is basically with every cabinet job. These are behemoths. Very few people have experience at that level with something that large. And if they do, it's probably a business which runs very differently, has different priorities. I would guess that not a single one of the people criticizing his lack of experience in managing something that large have management experience themselves in something that large. And I also think being an infantry leader, leading people in battle, that takes a certain leadership and skills. It's a very intimate position. So I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think in many ways, I would rather he had experience, but in many ways, I think he's like all the other picks of presidents of both parties.
Thank you, Bill and Elliot. Thank you all for listening. You can email us your own cabinet nominations at pwpodcast@wsj.com. If you like the show, please hit that subscribe button, and we'll be back tomorrow with another edition of Potomac Watch.